Brilliant. I think, guys, if you're okay, should we get going? Should we start our chat? Brilliant. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm Jo Taylor. I'm MD of Let's Talk Talent, and I'm super excited because it's the start of Learning at Work Week, and we've got a jam-packed Learning at Work Week for you. So hopefully you've signed up for some of the other activities. But mentoring is a really important part of our business. It's something that I feel very passionately about personally, but also has really helped me professionally. And I couldn't be joined by three better people today to talk about mentoring, both from a professional perspective, but also from a personal, because we've all had, similar experiences, but also hopefully we'll be able to challenge and on a Monday morning kind of tell these lovely people what it means to us and how they can kind of get involved and set up mentoring programs themselves. So without further ado, before I kick off questions, which is going to be about 20 minutes, guys, on the call, and then we're going to open it up for you to ask us any questions and put us on the spot. So if I start with Shelley, can you do a quick intro and then we'll kind of go round and we'll get going?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. It's absolutely fabulous to be here. So I'm Shelley. I look after learning and talent for the Cumberland Building Society. So I'm sitting here in the wonderful Cumbria. This is Ambleside behind me. I have come from logistics background, retail, started off my career working for the Office of Deputy Prime Minister, but now settled here in financial services.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shell. Robert?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Hicks. I'm the Group HR Director for Reward Gateway. And for the last, I think it's 16 years now, or 14 or 12, I'm not quite sure. I lose time. I've been working in tech. And so I'd probably say that I'm a tech-orientated HR leader who believes in the power of people and the good we can bring to organisations.
Love it. Love it. And as it says on my T-shirt, spreading the love this morning. So fantastic. Thank you so much. April.
Morning, everyone. Really lovely to be here. And I'm certainly going to be tuning into some of the other webinars and things you've got going on this week, Jo. It looks like a really exciting agenda. For those of you that didn't join the call right at the beginning and have not gathered, I work for LFC, and we'll certainly be celebrating at the club this morning our double domestic win, and we're hoping for the triple with the Champions League on the 28th. So I've been with the club 9 years and got 20 plus years experience in HR, many industries, retail, construction and e-com. So really looking forward to talking to you about the mentoring piece this morning.
Brilliant. So I kind of wanted to, you can tell, guys, that our panel has got huge amounts of experience. And I kind of wanted to start off with a general question, which is, how has mentoring impacted you personally and professionally? Can I start with you, April?
You can, Jo. Yeah, indeed. I've got to be careful what I say here because Robert was my mentor. But no, it was absolutely. I joined one of Jo's cohorts as a mentee initially, and was matched with Robert, which I think was a perfect match. Really, I don't know if you'd agree, Robert. But it's really helped me personally. I think so many of us kind of suffer from imposter syndrome and kind of that self-doubt and lack of confidence, and I think that's probably where I was at the time that I was matched with Robert, and I remember one of the first things he said to me was, you've lasted 8 years in football. Football's ruthless. You must be good. And that was one of these first sentences, and it just kind of took away some of that self-doubt, and it's really kind of stuck with me. So I think mentors can really kind of give you some of those nuggets and help you just kind of build your confidence. And at the time I was kind of being kind of going through a development program for internal succession purposes, and Robert was really kind of able to point me in the right direction, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And I think just having someone to talk to, bounce ideas off without any of the kind of internal politics that you've sometimes got to navigate when you talk to somebody within the organisation can just be so helpful. So yeah, and I know obviously as part of the programme, Jo, we have kind of 5 or 6 sessions with the mentor, but Robert and I have stayed in touch, and I'm sure we will do throughout both of our careers, really, because one good thing that really comes from it is helping you build that internal network, and that was really important to me. So really, really grateful for the programme that you've run, Jo. I think just as well to add that in the second cohort, I was then a mentor, because I kind of wanted to pay it forward, spread the love, as you just said, Jo. And I was matched with somebody with so much enthusiasm, and the topic at the time we were looking at with that particular cohort was career development, and I was really kind of able to support my mentee on that career journey. And at times I kind of had to be a bit brave as a mentor, because I felt like I had to give some really direct feedback, because I was perhaps observing things that others were observing that was maybe holding that individual back. So sometimes you do have to kind of just be that kind of find that courage to have some of those difficult conversations. But obviously the mentee will grow as a consequence of that. So it's been a really great experience, and I've been able to kind of develop myself from kind of both angles. So thank you.
Love it. Thanks, April. So can I throw to you, Rob? Turn the tables. How has mentoring helped you personally and professionally?
Thanks, Jo, and thanks for the kind words, April. It's April's 10th year next year, so I was wondering if there's an HR equivalent of the testimonial of a 10 years service at a club. And I think that's kind of a really important point around the tenure that April has. If you stick at somewhere which you really enjoy, it can be really hard to get out and meet new people and build those relationships. And I think that's what mentoring can give you, that being either a mentor or a mentee. It gives you that exposure to new people, new ideas, without having to leave where you are if you're in a really great, fulfilling job environment. And I also think that as a mentor or a mentee, sometimes you need to either give or receive some direct feedback, which you might have a coach which kind of helps you, kind of guides you, but allows you to self decide. And that what's become more apparent for me is my role of mentor is to really identify the key challenge they have, and which for April it was just realizing that she's amazing at what she does, and just give her that element of self-confidence. I've mentored other people where they need to leave because they're not being recognized, and to validate their own internal successes. And for others, it's about giving them the confidence to apply for a job internally. But it's also sometimes to really just look at how other organizations are doing things and to learn from their mistakes, but also to learn from what they're doing really well. And I think that the mentoring piece is, it's as a mentor, it's a reflection time for me to go, how can I help this really talented person with a little bit of guidance, a little bit of prompts, maybe a little bit of counsel, and then to see how they respond. But also, and I'll finish on this, it's about the communication styles. How does this person like to be communicated with? What's the level of frequency? And it's enabled me to improve how I interact with other individuals. And you find that calibration of communication, the cadence, the style, the frequency, and the style of communication, which is really important. And if you get that right, then I think the relationship really does benefit.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rob. Fantastic. Ciao.
What is there left to say? My goodness, everybody's said everything. I think for me personally, this sounds quite profound and deep, but I honestly don't believe I would have achieved what I've achieved in my career and got to where I've got to without mentoring. Personally, it's given me confidence. It's helped me navigate all that imposter syndrome that April mentioned before. It's given me friendships, long-lasting friendships. There are people who have mentored me, both formally and informally, that were at the very start of my career in that first job at the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister, which was John Prescott at the time, so giving away my age a bit, to now. I think professionally, what mentoring's given me is speed. It's given me the speed to be able to deliver, because I've had people there that I know I could bounce stuff off, that knew more, or just cut their teeth. They'd learned the hard way, and they were able to help me navigate some of the what to do and what not to do. So I think both personally and professionally, it's had a real impact on me, Jo.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, because I've had a number of mentors, and people have always said to me, do you need to have one person? Actually, I kind of have different people for different things. Like when I started my business, I had no idea how to run a business. So I got a business mentor, and I had somebody that helps me now much more on sort of confidence and leadership as the team kind of grows. So I think one size doesn't fit all. And actually it's important to kind of, as you say, you build friendships and you kind of pick people up on the way, don't you? In lots of, and you're never too experienced to have a mentor, which I, always thought it was kind of when you started your career, you kind of needed it. But actually, as you get more experience, I think it becomes more lonely, and you actually need that sort of experience. So how then do you take all of the great things in terms of mentoring, so all the things you've talked about, and put that into an organization and think about how does mentoring help that sort of social purpose? How does, what can it give an organization that perhaps L&D can't, or coaching can't? Where's the value add that some people on this call might be thinking about if they're wanting to start their mentoring? Who wants to take that question?
I don't mind going first. I think if we remove the word mentoring from that question, and answer is, if I gave you as an organization a solution which enabled your leaders to talk to people across different departments or without any fear, if I enabled your more junior staff to connect with other parts of the business, maybe to some senior leaders, if I enabled cross-departmental conversations to occur to build social networks and communication webs, and then said, does that sound good? And someone said yes. And then I said, what you're talking about there is mentoring. I think it's about our job in HR as being a communications job, not a people one. And it's so hard these days with COVID, kind of remote work, actually spread out across different offices, because not everybody's there. But how do you get people to talk to each other, or to learn and to really understand things? And mentoring is a real vital component within that. It's a solution to a problem which most organizations don't realize that, or they have.
That makes complete sense. April, Shelley, anything else to add?
Just from, sorry, Shelley, I was just going to say, from my point of view, Jo, we've used it as part of our kind of CSR strategy with our Red Neighbours. So we've kind of introduced some mentoring schemes with local schools through our girls network, which has been really, really successful. And it's kind of led to some of those individuals over the years joining things like our employability programs that our LFC Foundation kind of formal charity runs. But just kind of real opportunity to support people within the community that are perhaps kind of suffering with some of that social deprivation.
Love that. Thank you. Shell.
Building on from April's point, there at the Cumberland Building Society, our purpose centres all around kindness. I think what mentoring brings is instant generosity. People, as soon as you mentor someone, you feel like as if you're being generous with your time. Other people receive on the receiving end of that, feel that time as well. We also partner with Carlisle Youth Zone, which is a youth zone for young people from across the whole of Cumbria, but specifically Carlisle. And some of those kids have had really challenging times. They come from really challenging backgrounds, and just being able to link the mentoring up with young people within that charity has been really powerful, both for us and for the young people.
Brilliant. I'm going to throw it out to the audience and say, put into the chat, is anybody launching a mentoring program, or any of you mentors or mentees? What are things that you'd like to know from the panel? Get your questions coming in, and we can start relaying them to the panel and getting them to ask them. And I can take a break from asking you loads of questions. But you touched on a really good point about mentoring. So whether you're doing it from a social purpose or you're doing it from a kind of cultural purpose, like Rob said, traditionally we've seen mentoring very much as sort of, senior leaders mentoring more junior members. But I've seen it, and I did this at Channel 4 when I worked there, that sort of reverse mentoring, because I've gained a lot by working, top down, bottom up. Where does mentoring just need to be sort of traditional? Are there different ways of looking at mentoring? And actually, how does that help you as an individual, as you as a leader, stay in touch, rather than it just be what other people, what someone maybe junior gets out of it? April, what do you think?
Sorry, I couldn't take myself off mute then. Apologies. Where I've seen this work, and what we've done is, just before the pandemic, we launched a Back to the Floor program, and it kind of allowed our executive leaders in our VP community to go and experience some kind of days in each site, really. But then, obviously, and it was literally just before the pandemic. So what happened then was, we weren't able to kind of fulfill what we'd launched, and so instead of doing what we'd intended, we kind of made it more of an online reverse mentoring, which gave our execs an opportunity to gain some feedback, still getting them kind of out from behind the desk, but in a virtual way, and that really worked well. But we just kind of had to think on our feet as to how we might be able to kind of still get the feedback and the objectives that were set up from the original Back to the Floor program. And actually, as a result of that, we set up a more formal mentoring scheme where we've got kind of an app that people, it's not really an app, I say an app, it's like a SharePoint, so it's not as posh as an app, but people can go onto the site and kind of find themselves a match to be a mentor, and they can kind of say what it is they might want to talk about, etc. So it's kind of developed and gone from strength to strength, really.
Brilliant. I've got a question from Ask the Audience. Melanie's asked, or Mel's asked, how important is a structure in a mentoring conversation? How do you start? Shelley, can I throw that to you? And then maybe Rob, you can, you've done a lot of mentoring, I'll throw to you.
I think there's a balance to be had with structure. And I think the key thing for me is getting to know whoever you're mentoring and what's going to work for them. Schemes that we've got in place here at the Cumberland Building Society, we do give a bit of a structure as to key things, things to share about each other. We use insights, so we start off with sharing the insights profile and getting to know each other, and we also give a structure as to what great mentoring would look like in terms of how long, what the do's and don'ts are. But we do try to leave a bit of freedom for the two people to try and figure it out, because you don't want it to become too fixed and formulaic. You want people to have that freedom to be able to navigate and have that flow within it. So a structure is good to sort of like start things off, but not so rigid that it feels fixed. Would be my advice.
Rob?
I think for me, I'd kind of echo everything that Shelley has said there. And the one thing to remember is everybody has a different style of mentoring and different style of wanting to be mentored. And each relationship is going to be slightly different. And I think that the main thing I think to remember is it is a program with a time limit, which is an actual end. And then this allows everybody to kind of to continue and mentoring more people, because you might be able to do 8 to 12 people a year as a mentor, because you kind of bring them off and on. There may be some where you retain a relationship over a longer time period and you become a wise counsel. And I think you need a structure, and I think you need a consistency within your program, but allowing people to find what works for them kind of within that relationship. So I think you need to set the timelines, the frequency. And what I mean by that is we would expect you to meet between, say, 5 and 8 times over a course of 3 months. Guidance, rather than hard rules, because then what you do is you then allow people to establish what works for them. So to give you some examples, for me, I prefer shorter sessions of 30 minutes and to do more. And I prefer them on Thursday or Friday mornings when I know that I'm going to be more focused and have less time pressures externally, kind of within that. But I also like to be able to say, don't make it formal, just ping me a WhatsApp if it's an external relationship and say, when you need me, message me and I can answer faster. Yeah. And I think it's working out what me as a mentor works best, what kind of you as a mentee works best, and bringing that together. And we use Insights, and I don't think we've used that as part of our conversation for mentoring. So I've really learned something today about how we can improve internally.
And I think that's right, isn't it? It's all about building a relationship. I do some mentoring through HR Ninjas, a group on Facebook, and I get messages, on Messenger about it. Are you free? And you can then choose. And I think it's about that. And it's nice to have that sort of off ramp and on ramp. And there's the formality of a program, which some of the guys on this call might want to set up. But there's also this informal relationships, which is just as important, which you can run on a social platform. But we've all been in situations, haven't we, as mentors or even as a mentee, where the chemistry isn't there and it sort of doesn't gel. What do you do when things get a bit icky you can feel it's not working, but you don't know whether it's in your gut or actually? What are there any hints and tips that you guys have got that how you deal with that might be useful for people listening today?
I don't mind jumping in on that. And I think it links in with something I can see in the chat. There's one of the questions around skill. I think that it's not necessarily a skill, but there's a level of honesty required. I think when you need to be emotionally astute. You need to, when you've got that feeling in your tummy that it's not working, you need to be honest with each other. And I think that's part of setting up and the point around having some form of structure at the beginning so that you know how you're going to navigate those types of things, because they naturally do come to an end. The relationships do get to a point where either they run their course naturally or you're not the right mentor for that individual at that point in time. Yeah. I just say, as awkward as it is, have the conversation.
Yeah. Any other thing, April?
I was going to say the exact same, Jo. It's about honesty. Sometimes you hit it off with people and sometimes you don't. And that chemistry is really important for it to kind of be that successful relationship. So kind of be honest. I think the only thing I'd say, Jo, on when things might go a little bit wrong, and I have seen this, but not personally, more with somebody that I work with who's got a mentor, and I can see how that individual is becoming a little bit of a crutch for someone. So I guess that's when that relationship can go a little bit too far. So as a mentor, it's just really important that you kind of recognise when someone might be over-reliant. And again, it's important in terms of that honesty and giving feedback. And I think that's where Robert's point was really important around the number of sessions. So you've got to kind of put an end to it somewhere and then continue that on a more informal basis for individuals, just so that you avoid some of that over-reliance.
I've got a couple of questions about setting up a formal programme. One around sort of tips on how to do this, and second of all, any application and assessment processes that you might have used to make sure the right mentors are selected. So I know that you guys have set programs up before. Rob, can I throw to you first, and then each of the panel maybe take an element of that question?
Yeah, so there's lots of good resources kind of out there, and if you kind of look at kind of Jo's Let's Talk Talent site or the CIPD or our own Reward Gateway one, we'll kind of talk around that. And I think my first guidance is to do some reading and look around what style of scheme that you're looking to do. Are you looking to run a big scheme? Are you looking to match people across departmental, or is it just kind of a purpose of just trying to get more people kind of with some learning objectives, maybe a little bit of soft entry into management? And kind of once you've done that, then it's having a person who's responsible for communicating it, managing the applications and doing the matching. The main thing is don't worry too much around it. And those who know me long enough know that my favorite term is, why don't we run a pilot scheme to run it, and just getting 6 mentors and six mentees, and then doing that program and then refining it, because every time you do a scheme, it is going to adjust. And so don't think of it, it's another one of my sayings, it's all about progress. You're never going to find perfection. So let's focus on the progress that we're obtaining and looking at kind of around that. And just then going back to my other point is this is a communication scheme. Communicate what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, and how you're doing it. And then meet your objectives of timelines and delivery and everything else. And if you're oversubscribed, great, you've got your next batch already sorted.
Brilliant. And I totally agree about pilot. I kind of share that philosophy whenever we talk to clients. I always say, you know, they're doing something on careers or succession planning, and I say, just pilot it with a small group. You learn so much more. It's like kind of in beta sort of mentality. I think is really important. Shell, can I throw to you, and then I'll come back to April.
Here at the Cumberland, we keep it really simple. A lot of what Robert's just saying there, but we get people to really think about what powers they've got to share, what are the talents that that they're able to give, the passions, things that they're involved in, so that when it comes to that matching process, we've got that bit of a pro forma. We don't use any technology, good old Excel spreadsheet with the lists of names. You don't want to overcomplicate it. This is about two humans coming together and forging a relationship to support each other. So keep it simple would be my advice.
Totally, I totally agree. And Liz, if you want any hints on any questions, then please let us know, because we can share with you the questions that we ask our mentors and mentees. And then we just, as Shelley said, we just use a Google sheet or an Excel to look at what people are saying and then do the matching. But some of it's luck more than judgment, if I'm honest with you. April, anything you wanted to add, hon?
No, I echo what everyone said already, really, Jo. I think good old test and learn, absolutely. And then I think the other one is just don't over-engineer it. These things kind of evolve naturally. And I think sometimes you can get so hung up on having the framework and the technology, as Jo said, and actually start small and evolve it over time. And don't be afraid if it doesn't work, or there are some matches that aren't quite right. That's what it's all about. And kind of that's where you get the learnings from.
Absolutely. And I think it's also about how you support mentors and mentees, isn't it? There's a question from Jessica that's asking, how have you developed your mentors if they had the experience but have never mentored before? Are there, and a lot of you on this call have talked about sort of the skills, listening, communication, taking the time. But in your programs, I know that we do, around sort of the mentoring skills, but have you got any hints and tips around when someone wants to do it, but perhaps is a bit afraid and a bit intimidated by sort of, I've got nothing to share sort of thing?
I'll just jump in and kind of give a couple of things from our perspective. So first off, we do a kickoff session, and then we do check-ins with the mentors and bring them together so that they kind of feel and build a sense of community. Secondly, we kind of give a guidance, so like hints and tips, so kind of what's expected, and then the person who runs the scheme checks in with the mentors individually to make sure that after a couple of sessions things are going kind of as expected. And if you think around it, it's just really, it's another relationship where you're just kind of building in touch points to make sure that it's a success. Don't think of mentoring as a new and different and wildly unique thing. It's just building relationships across the business and making sure that asking the individuals, do you have enough from us to make the relationship work, or what more can we do for you? And the answer is 9 times out of 10 is yes, or someone might say, I've got this. And just answering that point of it not working, I'm always super relaxed about that, because it means that A, that we need to understand why, and B, it gives a moment that sometimes we have to work harder at making something work, which is no bad thing. And then that's kind of a little bit of better kind of work discipline kind of for ourselves as well.
Brilliant, thank you. April?
Sorry, Joe. I think just similar to Robert, really, we kind of bring everybody together throughout the journey. So all the mentors together, all the mentees, get them to kind of share their experiences. And that's really worked. They can support each other and kind of champion it. So nothing more than that, really, to kind of be the ingredient for success.
Brilliant. So you guys will be, under pressure from your CEOs. We're all, COVID has kind of put more pressure on HR teams, HR directors, and we're all being asked, aren't we, all the time for ROI. Mentoring sometimes can be seen as a nice to have rather than essential. Is there anything that we can do to sort of alleviate and take away that noise around mentoring? How do people judge the success of it? The sort of the outputs, the hard metrics, but also the outcomes, which might be more cultural. Any thoughts from you guys?
I don't mind.
Shelley.
Jumping in. Go on. I think that with mentoring, it can be quite hard with ROI because of the purpose piece. It doesn't mean that we don't try and measure it and look for the value in what we've put in place, but mentoring for some people can be very personal. It's not about the promotion, it's not about the those harder things. So sometimes for us it's just about, it's the right thing to do, to set up, to have this relationship in place. It's the right thing to do, it's the right approach. With some of the schemes that we've put in place where we've linked them to management development programs, there is a 360 at the beginning. When I say 360, it's like 10 questions, a bit of a 360 at the beginning and a bit of a 360 at the end, so that we can see we've got that full view as to the impact of the learning. And then obviously looking at, we're at the really early stages here at the Cumberland Building Society with our scheme, but looking at where what impact that has had on promotion or people staying in the organisation. But I think it comes back down to the purpose and giving yourself a bit of grace if it is just the right thing to do.
And in some ways, do we need to measure it? I mean, sometimes it's just something that's really important to the sort of social purpose and the sort of reason why you exist as a business. Not everything needs to kind of have a KPI attached, surely.
No, 100%. It is. It's time though, isn't it? And it's effort, and it's this. So it's understanding the impact, but not getting like bogged down in the detail of trying to measure it. Because also for me, I don't know whether this is the same for others, but sometimes when I've been mentored, I've set out in one direction thinking this is how I want the mentor to help me, and I've ended up somewhere completely different, but it's still of value, but not what would have been measured at the beginning.
Yeah, you make a good point. April.
I think just looking at some of those kind of usual metrics, you want your organisation to be a great place to work for people. So as Shell said, it is about doing the right thing, but if it is a great place to work, then obviously the retention scores, the engagement of individuals, the internal promotions, and all of those things will have a positive impact on them.
Awesome. Rob, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think there's some great points you kind of already mentioned. Mine would be, and as you know, I'll take a contrarian view. It's free in terms of cost, so why wouldn't you do it? It's a development opportunity for people to engage in a conversation where they've got to impart knowledge, particularly when you start to do reverse mentoring, giving people exposure to more senior leaders. And how do you measure success of anything in learning? It's really hard. So what we do is we ask the mentors and the mentees to rate the scheme and would they do it again. And actually that's the way where you keep the team honest about and saying, oh, it's amazing. What's the feedback? And if everyone's enjoyed it and got value from it, that's a return on investment in itself. And it's so hard to link it to kind of turnover stats or anything like that. So you've got to measure what you can and then use that to drive the improved performance of the scheme going forward.
Well, that's 100%. That's what we do in ours. It's like the net promoter score in kind of consumer. If people are saying, would you recommend it? We do this on our webinars, and you get a 10 out of 10 or you get a 9, then you know that you've hit the mark. Whereas if you get a 6, then you just, And also, I think which I'm really proud of, is that this is the 4th one that would have been running that we launched today. That some of our mentees, like you know, April, you said this. You were a mentee, you've experienced it from one side, and now you're giving back in terms of the other. And I think that's another way in which you can hopefully track over time that people stay with you because they enjoy the experience. So I'm going to, guys, have a think on the call. If you've got any questions, please put them in. We've got about 7 minutes to go, so don't want to not answer any of your questions. But I'm going to ask the panel, how do you make sure, so there's lots of schools of thought about mentoring, isn't there? It's the role of a manager, it's the role of an organisation, but it also can stray, can't it, into coaching, and it also can stray into counselling. And in a way, what do you see as the differences? And how do you make sure that it doesn't, stray particularly into counselling, which is, sometimes important that someone needs rather than a mentoring space. What are your Rob? I'm going to start with you and then go to April and then to Shell.
Yeah, there's one question which is stuck with me for probably 6 years since this person kind of gave me this tip, where they have a conversation with somebody, could be mentoring, could be any conversation actually. And the question to ask yourself in HR is, am I the best person to be listening to this? And that's a really hard, honest question to ask yourself. And then we've got to be honest with the mentee and say, I'm really not sure that I'm equipped to be able to answer your question. But if I was in your situation, I would. And then the answer is I would go and get some help kind of around this. I think there's 3 kind of elements. There's coaching, there's mentoring, there's counselling. All 3 fulfill 3 very different perspectives. And I would probably say the one I enjoy the most and the one I'm skilled at is mentoring. Being a coach is a particular set of skills, and being a counsellor is an even more particular set of skills. So we shouldn't be afraid to say, I'm not quite sure I'm able to answer this question. And then it would be, if it's internal mentoring, knowing your EAP and is there any wellbeing coaches and is there support. And if it is external, is encourage them to seek advice around that. But the main thing to remember is that we're not empowered to counsel. It's our job to mentor very different solutions and practices. And if someone's struggling, we should help where we can within that perspective of the relationship. But that's not our challenge kind of within that context, because there's lots of other people who should be dealing with that kind of within the organisation. And it's always medical support, advise them into that direction if it's kind of severe. Otherwise, I think you would really benefit from talking to your manager around this, or your internal HR team if it's an external scheme.
Brilliant. And Liz has just put something in the chat about David Beanie breaking the silence, offers some really useful language. I've worked with David before for a client. He's fantastic, and he's very, very open about his struggles with mental health. So do check him out. He's really good. Thank you so much. I think that's absolutely true. You kind of sometimes have to be brave and call it. And you did talk about being brave sometimes. April, anything you would add to that discussion?
I think sometimes people get a little bit confused and don't really know what they want. So they might see an opportunity to join a mentoring program or be coached, and they may kind of put themselves forward for that, but they're not really clear themselves where the distinction is. And I think sometimes we have to kind of spot where that might happen. I'm doing a coaching qualification at the moment, and someone came forward to be a coachee for me, which I was really grateful for in terms of getting all the coaching practice, etc. But after the chemistry session, got on like house on fire, all good. But during the contracting session, actually it became really apparent that they probably wanted more of that mentoring space. They wanted that advice, that guidance, a little bit more and that directive approach. So I think it's just helping people understand where those distinctions might be, and then kind of understanding what they might be looking for.
Thanks, April. Super. Shell?
Yeah, I just add, when you're putting in mentoring schemes, of taking that whole learning approach. We know our people, we tend to know the types of topics, whether it's from engagement surveys or whether it's from talking to people off the back of learning events that we're running. We know the stuff that they're wanting support on. So using that insight to help structure and give that clarity as to what the schemes are about. And also this knowing where things stray and some of those little lights, it comes with experience. So be kind to yourself, especially if you're mentoring for the first time. Just recognize that sometimes you might not make that call soon enough, but you will make that call because it will become clear.
Brilliant. So final question from the floor has come in. How do you tackle reverse mentoring when senior leaders could potentially say they don't have time to get involved or commit? Any last minute tips for the guys on the group?
I'll go. I'm sure that you have 30 minutes once a fortnight over the next 3 months to spend a bit of time kind of with a colleague who would really appreciate kind of your time and attention. And then more, that would be my public announcement. My more private piece would be, I think, talking to someone in a different set of circumstances to you would give you a very different set of perspectives, which I think would be helpful to you when we're going through all sorts of challenges and positives and budgets and pay reviews and everything else. And if you ask yourself X number of years ago, would you have liked this? I'm pretty sure the answer would be yes.
Yeah, love that. Thanks, Rob. April?
Bit of peer pressure, get some of those people that are really into it to kind of do a bit of stakeholder management for you, with perhaps the ones that are being a little bit more resistant.
Love it. Shell?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is we haven't got a reverse mentoring scheme here, but we're hoping to start one, and it's off the back of our work on anti-racism. So our chief exec has attended an anti-racist session and ultimately came away understanding the privilege that he's got. So we're looking at doing some reverse mentoring hooked into our inclusivity agenda. So whether it's youth or black and brown colleagues or whether it's our women, so we're looking at doing it that way, which I feel will get a lot of traction.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your words of wisdom, your counsel, and you're just you're just pure energy and passion around mentoring. I'm just really proud to call you partners and family within the Let's Talk Talent family, and that you are part of our mentoring program. So if anybody wants to be part of it, you could have the chance to be mentored by these fine people on this call, and you will be incredibly lucky to get any of them, because they are absolutely fantastic. I hope you guys have really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you so much for jumping on a call at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. Goes without saying, we've all kind of had a win this morning. We can kind of go into the week with a big smile on our faces. And for those people that want to sign up to our mentoring program and be a mentee or be a mentor, we will be sending information out. But it launches today, starts very, very soon. And we'd love to have and really support the HR community that we serve. So have a wonderful week, guys. Sign up to Learning at Work Week. Hope you get loads of stuff yourself in your organizations, and we will see you really soon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.